to Jen, and then down to Chris on this side. So Chris, if you just put your hand up for, that's it, down to me.
I'm very aware of how clever I've become to responding to situations and people.
Yep.
And placating and conforming. Question is, how do I know, without having anybody else around me, that I'm not just creating another facade, another response?
Yep. Firstly, let's define clever. Clever is when you do things in your soul's best interest.
Yes, that's not what I meant.
Exactly. So stop seeing it as clever and start seeing it as actually a self-destructive process. So one of the first part of the attitude we need to deconstruct our facade is to stop seeing our facade as a clever mechanism and start seeing it as a self-destructive mechanism, because it is a self-destructive mechanism. So that's number one. Without seeing it as a self-destructive mechanism, it's highly unlikely you'll have any aspiration to deconstruct it, to destroy it, right? Because you'll see it as something that's a good part of you, a best part of you, things like that. So we need to see it as something that we need to destroy, and therefore something that actually is not serving us anymore, not something that is serving us. Because it certainly might have served us in our childhood, but it's certainly not serving us in our relationship with God. Not at all. Yep. So that's very important. Now, the question you asked, Jen, is God's laws are all there to help you identify where you're out of harmony with love. And in your interactions with people, you will identify the particular problems that you have, right? So my suggestion is engage life and engage people, but start doing so with a lot more self-awareness. In other words, start seeing yourself as engaging people. What are my motivations for engaging this person? Why am I wanting to be here? Why do I feel like I need to be here? Why did I just say that? Why did I want that thing from them? What do I want from them? What do I want them to give me, and what am I prepared to give them because I want them to give me that? You need to have these interactions in the world in order to identify what the problems are, right? And once you've identified what the problems are, because God's laws are always trying to expose these problems to you, once you've identified what the problems are, then you are able to begin to work on why you engage those particular things, why you engage this behaviour. Now, that's the long way of doing it, but it is also the way that the majority of you will do it at the beginning. And the reason why is this. This is the thing we need to address: the global refusal of the emotion of terror. Now, the majority of you are going to choose to avoid that. And instead, you're going to do it the harder way, which is deconstructing every single addiction that you have and removing every single addiction that you desire to have, and seeing every single thing that you have in terms of what you desire to do. And you'll prefer to do that than you will to feel the emotion of terror. But remember, the emotion of terror is the thing that creates is one of the two things that create the facade. The other thing, of course, was the desire to avoid pain. And so if you address two global emotions, which we'll talk about in a couple of days' time, you have the potential to deconstruct the majority of your facade in a very, very short time. But the majority of you won't do it. Because you need to get to a state first where you believe you can feel the emotion of terror. And you need to get to a state then where you need to allow yourself to feel that you can cope with any pain. And that state takes a while to get to in terms of your aspiration, your soul-based desire. So the fast way to deconstruct your facade is quite simple. Feel the emotion of terror till it's done. Allow yourself to feel any pain no matter what it is.
Thank you.
That's quite simple, right? But as I say, the majority of you will not do it because it will be too intense. Many of you will feel it's too intense. And what you will do instead, or what you'll have to do instead, if you don't do that, is piecemeal, one by one, deconstruct every single facade you have, every single addiction you have. Yeah? Can you see that? This is all created because of this, the avoidance of this. You have two choices. You deconstruct all this, and even after you've done all that, you still have this. You still have this, won't you? Even if you deconstruct all this one by one, by one, by one, by one, might take you years, right? But this is what Mary has done. Oh, I did the first 7 years. The first 7 years of my work, that's what I did. Still got this after that. And once I dealt with that, then things started to progress. Yeah. Now remember, I've said to you in the first group that I've been doing this now for 20 years, around about. 20 years this year, actually. And the first 7 of that, I spent doing this deconstructive technique. Yeah. And then I went through some pretty major terrors. And once that started to happen, then I started to make some real progress. Yeah.
Thank you.
But we'll talk more about that in the 2 days in removing, when we talk about removing our unloving self.